Welcome to the Revenue Room podcast. I'm Heather Holst-Knudsen, your host and CEO and founder of H2K Labs and the architect behind the Revenue Room portfolio. This is where CEOs and revenue-critical C-suite leaders come when they're done with theory and want the truth about what actually drives growth in a data and AI-powered economy. Every episode brings you the most interesting, forward-thinking operators in the media, events, and data information services industries. These are the people who are not just talking about the future, they're building it. These are the leaders rewriting business models, redefining value creation, and moving faster than the market's trying to disrupt them. Everything we talk about is shaped by the ecosystem behind us. Revved Up is our flagship summit for CEOs and revenue-critical CXOs who trade real playbooks, not platitudes. And Revenue Room CXO is our invitation-only network and year-round growth operating system for leaders who refuse to fall behind. If you're listening, you already feel the urgency. The gap between companies that adapt and the ones that don't is widening. And the question really is where you'll land. So let's get into it. Welcome back to the Revenue Room, the network where CEOs and revenue-critical teams turn AI disruption into growth strategy. I'm your host, Heather Holst-Knudsen. Today, we're joined by a true pioneer in B2B media innovation, David Newcorn, the president of PMMI Media Group. David's career is a masterclass in digital transformation. He began his journey over 30 years ago as a packing journalist. In 1995, when the internet was still in its infancy, he was famously warned by his supervisor not to waste time on, quote unquote, that web stuff during business hours. Ignoring that advice, he built the company's digital footprint from scratch, evolving it from a single website into the industry-leading data and media powerhouse it is today. And in fact, I think, David, where I met you was you and I were selected as the Mavericks, the Young Turks, at an ABM conference to talk about digital on stage. And you and I had a great conversation.
That's right. Absolutely. And it's great to be here, Heather. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, as president, you now oversee strategy across advertising, sales, and product development at PMMI Media. And your track record of helping B2B media organizations modernize and monetize is something we're going to really dive into today.
Great.
So the other part I'd like to mention before I kick off with my questions is David is a member of Revenue Room CXO. So we're really delighted to have him. And he'll also be at Revved Up. So if you'd like to meet David face-to-face and talk all things B2B media, digital data, and monetization, that's the place to find him. So welcome, David. So glad to have you on the show today.
Thank you. Thank you, Heather. Excited to be here.
Let's start into the rebel of David. Mm-hmm. So you were famously warned by the supervisor not to waste time on that web stuff during business hours, and you ignored that advice. So one that was pretty brave for the time. You know, we're Gen Xers, and part of us march to our own tune, but part of us are hard workers with our head down getting stuff done. So you built the company's digital footprint from scratch, and now digital accounts for half the company's revenue. So it wasn't just building. It was that you had to inspire the team to embrace and sell and actually embrace your rebellion. What did you learn from that journey, and what do you still use today? Because we're now back into a new cycle of massive innovation and disruption and rebuilding business models.
Good question. And I think the word that he used, it did begin with the letter S, but it wasn't stuff. Just, okay. To correct the record, but I'm assuming this is a family style podcast, so I don't want to. So that boss, he was, so I was an editor for Packaging World. That boss was Arnie Orlowski. He was the founding editor of Packaging World. And I learned a lot under him. I learned how to write. I learned how to be a journalist. I have eternal gratitude for what I've learned from him. But in those early years, the mid 90s, after a time, I found myself getting a little restless. And I gave him a memo at some point of like, here are 15 or 20 things that I think we could do to improve the magazine. He took me out to lunch and he proceeded to tell me why we couldn't do all 20 of the items on the list, debunking them one at a time. So 10 or 15 years later, I came across that memo when I was cleaning out some files, and I reread it, and every single idea had been implemented by the subsequent editor after him. And so So what's the lesson? The lesson for me was we don't really need people who can give us a list of 10 reasons why it can't be done, because we know all this stuff is really hard. And what I prioritize and prize is the people who can give me a list of 10 ways we might be able to do it or get it done. And and he, despite his years of experience, and he was super smart, super savvy on the industry, fantastic writer, great mentor, but he got that wrong.
Yeah.
So that's been a big guiding principle for me ever since.
So one of the things that kind of kept, in your list, it's not just how it can be done, but why, right? Like, what is it going to yield? Why do we need to do this? And I think a lot of, I think people are facing that now today is, we do things to solve problems, right? Solve customer problems and solve problems for our business, right? And we can't let things like the innovation, the lure of the innovation or the shiny coin get ahead of our boots, in that forget the why and we just do it for the sake. I see media companies do this all the time, by the way. It's going A to Z without the B to Y.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're guilty of that too. So.
Well, do you pressure your team when they come up with lists and things like that with new ideas and innovation, is to say, okay, here's the how, but also the why, or, that lesson you learned?
It's not been so much an issue for us. I think the why. I think in the early years of my career, we were exactly what you just described. We were like, hey, here's we can now come out with this thing in blue, so let's do that. Nobody questioned, like, is that a good idea to come out with a thing in blue? And but it seemed like a good idea at the time, and we would throw it against the wall, and sometimes it would stick. A lot of times it would not. And so, and I think one of the things I love about this business is that you can be scrappy and you can be experimental, and you don't have to, you don't have to, you should, but you don't have to measure twice and cut once. So, of course, there are consequences when you get it wrong, certainly. But so the why is something we've increasingly spent more and more time on as a team, the leadership team at our company, and slowing down some of the, I think there was a feeling of, we got to come out with the next thing, and kind of a hamster wheel situation. And I think the product development teams felt pressure from me. And we've recently started to, like, we can slow down and be a little bit more deliberate and spend more time talking about the why. And that's fairly new for us.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, that's good new discipline. And actually, for the audience, I just thought I missed a question I should have asked you first, which is, tell the audience about your business, right? PMI Media, and actually the ownership of that, because I think that's going to be very important for some of the things we're going to start diving into.
Yes, it's a very odd structure. Or I should say it's not common, but so we were founded in 1993 as an independent media company, 3 partners, and about 11 years ago we were purchased by PMMI, PMMI, which is the Association for Packaging and Processing, and PMMI is and was and is the predominant association in our space. And so it was a little weird in the beginning, or when they first expressed interest, because it was one of those co-opetition kind of a deal. So PMMI puts on the largest show in our industry, in our market, and then we would monetize that show indirectly by selling ads of people who wanted to, attract people to their booth at the show and year round. Mm-hmm. And PMMI at the time had its own magazine, so that was weird. So, but they had done a study that they had brought in some consultants who said, hey, if you want to have a true digital platform, here are all the things you have to do, or you could just buy Summit Media Group, which is what we were called. So they're like, we didn't think about that. And so they just said, hey, we'd like to simply buy you. And so Total surprise, didn't see that coming, it's worked out really well. It's taken a number of years to soften the silos, the walls between the silos. I mean, physically two different locations. We're in Chicago, they're in the DC area, Virginia, and that's just naturally some geographic silos. But we've made really, really positive inroads in breaking down the barriers and the silos in between the media operation and the trade show and the association. So in all, it's been really fantastic, really great group of people to work with, culturally very similar, blah, blah, blah. So it's been a good thing.
So just again, for our listeners, PMMI produces one of the largest trade shows, even outside there. It's called PAC Expo. So that's number one. But I would also want to just clarify. So even though PMMI is the nonprofit, association, PMMI Media is still a for-profit business unit owned by the nonprofit.
As counterintuitive as that seems, yes, you said it correct, Heather.
Yeah.
And I wish we could have the PAC Expo trade show on our P&L, but alas, it is not.
Right.
But in terms of what our revenue mix, we're about as of last year, we're about 63% digital, 30% print, and about 7 or 8% live events live and digital events. So the print has gone down, as I'm sure everybody's is, and the digital has come up, but it's been flat, a little bit flat, and we're really trying to shift into events, which is new for us. That's a new thing, not new for most of your listeners, quite old, in fact. But we thought for years, we thought, well, we really can't do events because our parent company does the event.
Right.
And then it just shows you the power of what's the expression? Self-limiting beliefs. Is like, actually, you can do events. It's like, yeah, we're not going to launch another PAC Expo, but we can do there's everything in between. And sure enough, there's a lot of players in our space that do have events and that we think we probably could do a better job. So this is a new thing for us, I would say the last 3 years.
Yeah. So, okay. So again, just now, one is there's a very huge difference between a PAC Expo trade show and what I call smaller, more intimate conferences and events. So there's definitely obviously room, and I'm really super glad you're getting into it. And it's a great addition to your 365, 247, start the conversation early and stay there solution set for your advertisers. But how many brands do you have under PMMI?
There's 3 major brands and then a couple of minor brands. So 5 brands.
Okay.
Total. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So David, you do a lot of writing, and in your writing on Active Audience, you criticize the legacy B2B model where publishers incestuously swap the same circulation list back and forth. You pivoted PMMI to a discovery model using algorithms to identify net new buyers from trade show data like the next Chobani or RX bar before they're on anyone else's radar. How difficult was it you to convince your advertisers that a dynamic rotating audience was more valuable than a static guaranteed list? I think that's a really interesting question, by the way.
Well, thank you. It sounds, this is an example of something, Heather, that sounds good on paper. But the reality was like a little different. So I'll sort of unpack it. Advertisers liked it. It was, and at the time it was sort of a little bit borderline sacrilege because traditional print publishing holds that you want to have direct request circulation. And we finally realized, well, what's more important, direct request of someone who may be borderline not qualified, or someone who is a rapidly growing company that's going to buy our advertisers' products and services, and that maybe we get in front of them in their journey, in their buying journey. And so the feedback from advertisers was like, yeah, sounds good. I mean, it was just not a big deal. The part that didn't work well is the actual underlying theory at the time was around a print circulation strategy. So the idea is like we would rotate a certain amount of these folks into our print circulation over time for like 2 or 3 months, and then we would do the telemarketing thing. Hey, you've been getting Packaging World. Would you like to get it for real and renew your? And the idea is that they would, oh, I've been getting it and I love it. Yes, I would like to renew it. The reality was we didn't. After an initial test that we did see a nice bump in that strategy, we weren't able to continue it or maintain it. Mm-hmm. We still embrace the practice because it does get the right people in front of that message, but we balance it very carefully with direct requests. So it's a blended approach to print circulation.
Okay, I see. So it's very much centered on the print product.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. And today it's not. I mean, today we have people who don't even know what BPA is or audits are. I mean, but not to throw BPA under the bus or any of the audit houses, but what we found was, so one of the things I did before I did my current job was I was overseeing digital and custom, but I also oversaw audience for a time, and it kind of bugged me that BPA had all these very rigid rules that were rooted in an earlier era that made total sense, like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
For example, if somebody signs up, getting in the weeds for your audience, but if somebody signs up and they're like, I'm with Rockwell Automation, but I'm a supplier, I'm not even a reader, and I'm signing up for your newsletter or whatever, and let's say my job is to sell into the meat industry. So you'd have those people checking off, I'm in meat and poultry. Mm-hmm. We developed an algorithm that bounced that reader identity off of a Dun & Bradstreet database, and it would come back and say, actually, this person works in automation, not in meat and poultry, and the SIC code is blah, blah, blah. And so the BPA rule was you couldn't change their industry because they reported, it was self-reported. So that's a classic, I know you're big on data, that's a classic case of an old paradigm forcing us to, so I said, you're meaning we got to keep bad data that's wrong and does a disservice to the advertiser to comply with your rules. And they're like, yeah. So that's when I was like, okay, it's falling apart. The old paradigm is starting to fall apart. So yeah, that's.
And that's such a great example of an industry that has, I mean, I don't know if they've changed things. It's been a gazillion years to Sunday that I've touched a BPA statement, but that's an industry that had an opportunity with change to help publishers have better data about their audiences if they had done what you had done. And as a service, right? Instead, they kept to the old rule. I mean, I don't know who does BPA anymore. I don't think many people do. But
yeah, and to their credit, they tried. I think a lot of their focus was on the web, and they're in a tough position because everybody used Google Analytics, and so it's like, well, we're certifying your web traffic, and there's a part of me that says that's the wrong audience. That's like, we don't know who those people are. I mean, we like to say we do, but we really don't. But we know who the people are on our email lists, and gosh darn it, if we know a person is not in meat and poultry, I think we need to put that person in the right bucket. Right. That's what we're getting paid for. So they didn't quite. They really focused on the web and the anonymous data part of the relationship, and I don't know that was a good idea. Probably was a good idea at the time, but in retrospect,
it's not. I never was a great idea because we're selling the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Quantity of X of what was that we don't know. There's a story. I remember I hired this consultant who was like, I'm going to get you tons of traffic. I've got this whole big algorithm and SEO this and all. We were looking at search traffic coming to our site. The traffic peaked. Don't get me wrong. We got a lot of traffic, but they were looking for brooms.
Right. Yeah.
Not enterprise software. Yeah. So anyway, I digress. Now let's go move into a topic that I think you and I are both, my background was in manufacturing, putting, technology sellers with manufacturing buyers. You're in packaging. So we're in this industrial space. And we've got some pretty tough clients when we, pretty rigorous on the ROI. And one of the things, that I always talk about the importance, and I think you've built some your side, I've built some my side, is a product discovery platform that puts buyers and sellers together. And it's so easy to say that, but it's really hard to build. and you've built quite a few. So first, let's talk about why this concept is so important. It's like you going beyond just articles and content and blogs. It's just helping buyers do their job and helping sellers do their job. And then we can kind of dive into first your experience and then the whole thing about taxonomy and the connections and the data you need to use to make it work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for years, I've always wanted to do, I'm super geeky when it comes to data and taxonomy. So for years, I wanted to do a really well done directory in our space. Of course, you come, Heather, from royalty when it comes to buyer and seller marketplaces and taxonomy. We lacked the resources of a Thomasnet, but I thought, gosh darn it, one day I'm going to do this thing. To do a good directory is very hard. We partnered with some people over the years that sort of fly by night types. I'm sure you know who some of these people are. And hey, we'll come in and we've got a big team in India. We'll scrape the web and we'll throw up a instantiated directory and overnight and it'll be great. And even though we don't know anything about packaging, you can guess how successful that was. So I've always wanted to do something because it goes to, and I'm happy to get into it because I have some thoughts on how we did it. But one of the things that one of my motivating factors was intent. And we talk about data, we talk about buying intent, and you've got a lot of platforms like your Bomboras and folks that are trying to discern intent. And I have a contrarian view, which I will happy to share, which doesn't make me super popular, depending on who I'm talking to. But I don't know. Now it depends on the nature of the media product, but for certainly for our media products, I don't know that you could say that someone who's reading an article about a case study about someone's packaging line, I don't know that shows intent. I don't think you can say that shows intent that they're going to buy the machines talked about in that. It could be they just want to kind of check out what someone else is doing. Same thing with just news or industry information. It doesn't show buying intent. And for years, the mantra was, oh, let's mine our web traffic and our audience, look at the content they're looking at, and then we can divine the intent and sell those as premium audiences. I've never really believed in that, Heather, and it could just be that it could be that I'm stupid, number one, or it could be that our content doesn't necessarily lend itself to that. But I know that a lot of other publishers did go down that road. When we were acquired by PMMI a couple years after the acquisition, they said, "Hey, it occurs to us that our member directory is really bad, and we would like to redo it." And I said, "Oh, let me do it." I've been thinking about this problem for 20 years. And the reason I wanted to do it is because if you have people coming to a really well organized directory, that I think is a credible argument for showing buying intent. They literally are shopping on this shopping website. So not new to you from your background at Thomasnet, but it was pretty revolutionary for us. So we put a ton of resources in. So this website is called prosource.org. And we launched this about 4 years ago, and we hired a full-time editor. And there's about 1,000 companies on it, suppliers in the market. They're all PMMI members, and we spend a great deal of time trying to put these companies in the right bucket, so that when audience comes to this site, it's a quality experience. Interesting thing about taxonomy. So I mentioned I'm a super taxonomy geek. And at the start of this project, taxonomy is everything, especially when you're like trying to show intent and align it to your advertisers' products. The taxonomy that PMMI had been using was, oh my gosh, it was probably decades old. Like really old, and some of the things by that time I'd been in this industry for like 25 years. So I don't know it as well as a supplier or a consumer packaged goods company, but I know it pretty well. And some of the things in that taxonomy is like, no idea what this is. Doesn't even make sense. And I would ask other people at PMI, and they're like, I think that might be, so it's like, it's clear that they didn't know some of these things, or some of these terms have become a little rusty. So we made the decision to throw out the taxonomy and start over. We brought in a group of end users, what we call end users, so our readers, attendees, whatever you want to call them. And we had a series of meetings over several weeks, and we literally went through the entire universe of packaging and like, how do you guys think of this? What do you call it? What's the name? We would call it this, but do you call it that? And so it was a lot of work. But you ended up with a taxonomy that was modern. It made sense. And then we put in place a process to allow that taxonomy to grow and to breathe. So they meet twice a year and they review suggestions to change it or augment it. Now I'm wondering, and I'm curious to know, I know you're the one asking the questions here, but I'm curious to know what your thoughts are. Now it's like, does taxonomy not matter anymore in the age of AI? It's like we did all that. Yeah, we did all that work, and like as the drawbridge was like pulling up, it's like, hey, late to the party, guys. so it's
to answer your question, one is I think you had to do it that way at that time. There was no other way to do it, and taxonomy is the driver of search when you're looking at a marketplace. Now, the first point I'm going to make is, and I think Thomas got this wrong, by the way, and they never were able to fix it. They were company first, not product first. I don't look for companies, I look for products. Absolutely has to be product first. And then that's how you organize your taxonomy, is around product categorization, not company. And then the features that we used to have something called parametric search. We had something called tech match. And then there were features that were critical to buyers in terms of evaluating, selecting products. And then once you started getting into that, that's where really the buyer intent came. Because I could be looking, just doing research for a company, but if I'm actually diving in and doing some product discovery, comparing, and like that's not something someone does for fun.
Yeah, right.
So we that's how I really look at a really successful buyer seller marketplace. Now with AI, I could literally go in, no, here's the key: that for AI to work, that information has to exist somewhere. It doesn't make it up, but you could go in. So it has to go source this data. But with AI, I could go in and be like, let's say I'm looking for, give me a packaging type.
Cartoning machines.
Okay. I'm a mid-market manufacturer of bubble gum looking for cartoning machines, and I'm located in Wisconsin, and my revenues are X. So here's my manufacturing environment, here's my product, and like, here are the constraints. Tell me which ones I should look at that other companies like me look at. That's now my AI query, and then AI should be able to go out and start querying, but they have to query something. What are they querying? I don't know. Because they have to get into your data. And then, do you actually need the structure? You need data. You need, somehow they have to find it, but do you actually have to go through a very rigid, what I call structured data environment? Is there a way to have this data in like a data lake that's unstructured and you're just...
I still think there's value in structured data, even in the age of AI. Probably not in the way that we are used to thinking of it, of someone like, I want to find a machine. They just want to have a conversation with an AI. Find me the suppliers of the kind of machine that I need. But I still think there's value in structured data in the sense that we one of the tools we're experimenting with is not as sophisticated as what you just described, but it's like, tell me what it's meant for small to mid-sized companies that are maybe automating early in their journey, just for the first time. Tell me what your product is, chewing gum. And then you punch that in, and then it spits out not a list of companies, but a list of, okay, here are the processing steps, because we cover processing and packaging. Here are the processing steps. Here are the packaging steps. We also say, what's your end package format that you want? I want to go in a wrapped thing or whatever, or a flow wrap pack or whatever the pack. okay, now that you've told me what the product is, now you told me what the end package type is. Here are the steps of the manufacturing, which, by the way, links to the categories on ProSource. So it guides them through the journey and it lays it out. It does create a structure. So we have experimented. We debuted that at our most recent Pack Expo show to some users to test it, and they really like the concept. So I think there's something there. Have we figured out how to monetize it? No. Is it thorough? Not really. Does it make mistakes? But
that was my next question, was the monetization. First of all, I love that, because so what you're describing is, to me, a decision support tool. It's helping me understand. Again, it's helping me avoid the A to Z without the B to the B to Y. It's helping validate that it's getting me there faster. I like that a lot, and that's why I think your end users liked it. But in your head right now, even though you might not have a concrete monetization strategy, do you have any thoughts of things you're pressure testing?
So it's tough because it goes back to the fact that it's a website. And my worry is that, we could put all the time and money and resources into this thing. And at the end of the day, it is a website that people have to go to use. And I just don't know that that's our future. I think our future is they're not going to go to, they're not going to go to packworld.com or ProSource necessarily. How can I make my package more sustainable? They're going to go to ChatGPT. Now, ProSource comes up as we've seen it actually come up as answers to that. And I know a lot of publishers are clinging to the AEO or GEO, but I don't know that I would stake my future on whether or not Sam Altman decides whether we show up and how could we get that monetized anyway. So I just worry about. I think it could, like in the days of ThomasNet, totally could work. Totally could work.
Yeah.
Today, I think our relationship, and I get in arguments sometimes with our team. I think our relationship surface, for lack of a better word, is with our audience is by email. I think email is the channel, and we could promote this tool or any tool, by email, but it's like we really need to do a better job mastering email, and it's less about driving traffic to the website.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit on this one. I might be on the side of your team.
It's your podcast.
So what I'm not. Email is important, but first of all, next generation that's coming in is not email. They don't like email so much. They're using apps and messaging on those apps.
True. Yeah. Very true.
That's one I would worry about that. But the second part is, you're sending email to get them. I would imagine they're not doing work in an email. If you want them to do things with your content to help them do their jobs better, faster, with less risk, they need to go somewhere to do it. And you definitely want them to go to you.
Yeah, but I guess my point is it's really hard to say we're going to make this website the go-to place they go to first before they do anything. It's just really hard to get people to. I think they've already got that. They go to Google, they go to ChatGPT, they go to Claude, whatever.
I think it's hard to do that if you're relying solely on articles and content, for sure. But if you have tools like decision support tools, and you guys own. Your industry expertise is way, like if let's say you're the leader in packaging, right? You actually have tremendous wealth and depth of content and data, not just what you've written, but the behaviors that are taking place. Like, we're talking to media companies that are building their own, answer engines, their own LLMs to help their audience do more things with the content that they have to help them, again, make decisions better, faster, with less risk. They're going to trust you way more than they're going to trust a ChatGPT. I mean, that is absolutely where the market's going. And you're in a great position from a vertical niche standpoint.
It's I mean, on paper, it's true. I mean, everything you say is indisputable. My hesitation is, will they actually do that? Will they actually think, oh, I'm going to go to this niche industry website first, even if it's a decision support tool, versus I'm going to go to what's easy? So I think both things can be true, but I think that uh, it's. I agree with you also, Heather, that you can't do it just with articles and newsletters. That's a different relationship, and we are realizing that, and we're realizing we really have to get into. One of the things I'm curious to know your thoughts on this. One of the things that I'm struck with is what we ask of our audience, and what we ask a lot, right? We ask them to spend their really valuable time, and our relationship is characterized by, hey, audience member, here's more things that you can spend your really valuable time on that you don't have, by the way. And one of the things that I'm starting to think about is like, well, what if we came up with things that saved our readers time? How about that, right? And so this decision support tool is a great example of that. But it's a totally different mindset in how we package it and how we market it. And we're not used to thinking that way. And the problem is, when you're a media company, it's the old saying of every hammer, when you're a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. Our solution to everything is like, I know, another 1,500 word article. And it's like, I don't know that that's going to work so much going forward,
Yeah.
And so I think all specialized media companies are kind of going through that. The solution is not necessarily more videos, more podcasts, more articles, more.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, let me ask a question with that, and just kind of taking that thread. The way you coexist with Pack Expo. I actually use a stat I got off your media kit that when it's in a boot camp I do, but it's your relationship with them, and if it's done correctly, between media before and after with Pack, it's 80% more leads. Like, so you're creating solutions that integrate, but before and after, and I'm imagining on site through the media and digital programming with the live experience.
Yes.
Talk about how that works and
Sure.
how it's sold, and then how are you reporting the ROI back to your advertisers?
Very good question. Very astute. What we do is we just simply look at because this is the benefit of being part of the same organization that puts on the trade show. We get a list of every exhibitor's leads, and then we bounce it against, well, which ones of those advertise with us over the course of the year? And then is there any kind of net difference in the number of leads? And it turns out there is, and it varies. We use 80% as an average number, but it'll vary by product category. And we have begun to report that. In fact, that's a good reminder. I have my next meeting is with our marketing director, so I got to ask her, hey, are we going to update that for this year? But it's a really compelling statistic. The problem is, and I'll say how we report it or how we do it in a second, but the problem is it's so hard to get the attention of the companies. So many companies, as you know, their answer to marketing is to go to a trade show, to exhibit at a trade show. Totally doesn't occur to them to actually market their presence at the show. They just think, I'm going to show up and the hordes of people are going to come to my booth. And it's an old way of thinking, and all of our customers don't think that way by definition, but there's way more companies that exhibit at our shows that don't advertise than do. And it's like, how do you get to those people? And how do you? And in some cases, they just like, well, you can't. I don't believe you can help me. And in some cases, they have a very old, outdated mindset of like, oh, media, isn't that print? We don't do that. It's like, no, that's just a little bit of what we do.
Yeah.
So we came out with this to answer your question. How do we do it? We a lot of it is just old fashioned. We get. But the companies who run with us, they're in front of the target audience more than the companies that don't. So the actual core precept of advertising actually does work: frequency, reach. But we have come out with about 10 years ago, a really interesting product called Game Plan. And the way that works is, and that uses data. So this is a good thing. Basically, what we do is when attendees sign up for the show, they like every trade show, like we say, what product categories are you here at the show looking at? So I'm looking at case packers, I'm looking at labelers, whatever. We take that data and then we marry it up with advertisements of companies who are in those categories, but they're not typical ads. It's almost like a directory in print. And we use data and digital printing to print these up. So it's a print thing, but we count it as digital revenue. Why? No two copies are alike. It's a completely digital experience. It just happens to be rendered on paper. So you could be going to the show, you would check off labeling and case packing. I could be going to the show, check off liquid filling and palletizing. Our copies of Game Plan would be completely different. And it walks you through the show. There's like a little map with pins, and it shows you the booth. So you're flipping through this thing, and you're like, oh wow, this is. And I when I'm on a sales call, which nobody ever invites me in on a sales call anymore, but I say this thing is remarkable not for what it includes. It's remarkable for what it doesn't include. It doesn't include any of the stuff that you're not interested in. And people are like, wow, that's like pretty mind blowing. And so these very thin pamphlet type things, but it's very targeted to the attendee. And you see, I just got an email from our trade show management last night saying, oh, I just spoke to someone. They're like 60% of the people walking into our booth were holding on to one of these things because it's targeted to them. It's personalized to them.
It's so interesting in that you're using an analog service, right? It's a piece of paper, but you utilize data to do it. So it's on there. And it is being used because a part of me was like, why are they doing that? Why don't they have an app? But I think we can't. Yes, there's this new generation coming in, which has different, but it's like that new generation can't completely like discount us people who still exist that might like to, because, it's a very interesting time. Like there's a big, it's complicated because of all of the different channels, I think we still have boomers, we got the Gen X, you've got millennials, you have Gen Z, and I don't know, there's this new one coming in that I don't even know what they're calling them. But so that's a really cool use case.
It is, and a lot of people wonder, well, why aren't you doing that as part of the app? And the answer that we tell people when we want to look smart is like, well, there's room for both, and the people like it's just a bigger, high fidelity experience. You get more information per inch of eye space, and the unofficial reason is, well, we don't control the app. That's through a third party vendor. So
right.
And the future answer is maybe both, and so we're looking at a roadmap that makes this more electronic over time. But gosh darn it, if you don't see people walking around with these things, and it's like when you get yours in the mail, it says your name in big giant 100-point type on the cover. So it's like, what? David Newcorn, what is this? How did they get my name? This is the show I'm going to. Oh, hey, these are the products I'm interested in. Oh, here's some vendors I want to check out. So it works.
Simplicity gets way overlooked. Honestly, because I'll tell you, and listen, I'm all in the business about digital and data, and we do offer apps for our events. I am a paper person. I want it on my back of my bag. I want it somewhere like easy. I get very annoyed when I don't have. Then I gotta pull the app up, and other people love the app.
Right. It's another user interface that you got to learn.
Yep. So it's a really good simplicity. Right. Simplicity.
And to the point of, like, I even specified so this was my product when I was back in the day. And I specified to the printer, they're like, you want this on glossy paper, right? And I was like, absolutely not. I want it on matte. I want people to take their ballpoint pen and write notes on it. And there's like literally an area, a little box where they can write notes. And you know how when you write on glossy, it smudges and ink and it's really irritating. And it's like, I want the ink to go into the paper, baby.
Yeah.
That's what I want. And they use it.
That's awesome. That's a great use case.
But it's data. It's data. It's literally, it's you know what it is, Heather? It's 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, however many copies we print, depending on the show. It's 20,000 different web pages, but they're not web pages. They're rendered in print. But it's rendered electronically first.
Is it? I don't know. Maybe I don't want to ask this. Is it expensive?
It's well, we built it in house. So we built this. It's a custom thing. So for a brief time, we talked about selling this to other trade shows, and we realized, you know what, being in the software business is a different business, totally different than publishing. And the history of the road on the journey to publishers trying to make money through technology is littered with dead bodies of everybody who's tried to.
Not a good idea.
Yeah,
not a good idea.
We're like, you know what? Why don't we just keep it running for us? You know, like, how's that for an idea?
No, I trust you're right. There's a graveyard. There's a graveyard.
Yes, a well-populated one.
So how do you view machine learning and AI in terms of your own product, your own platform evolving to help your readers, your audience get to what they want better and faster? On the flip side, your advertisers getting better value and results and outcomes from their investments.
So on the reader side, tools that we were talking about, the where we call it the AI search pilot, which sort of spells out the different categories so that's one of the things we've tried to do. On the sales side, the advertiser side, and the internal side, one of the things that we're using AI for, and we're not there yet, to be honest, still needs a lot of work, is categorizing audience in the right bucket. And that's so important to us to keep that audience really pure. I don't know that it's as much of a priority at other publishers as it is here. And so we did come up with an algorithm years and years ago. It's not AI. And it's pretty good. It's like 95% accuracy, but it requires, like I mentioned earlier, it requires a physical address, a mailing address. And it's like, well, we don't always get the mailing address. In fact, increasingly, we don't get the mailing address. So how can you do it just by crawling their website? And, so audience classification, but what we're finding there is that it's really hard. You need someone who just consistently spends time looking at the output and correcting it. And if nobody has the time to do it, you've got a shitty AI tool. See, I just blew the whole.
That's okay. We can swear on here.
I was so proud of myself up until that. So that's something we're and it's like, well, that people are busy and that people who have that industry knowledge. It can't be the programmer. It has to be someone with industry knowledge, and we have those people here, but they have day jobs. So how So I've asked the team come up with a plan so that the people with industry knowledge are regularly. I don't want to hear, yeah, Tom looked at it once and he was okay with it. It's like, no, it's not good enough.
People forget that part or just don't get it yet. Is that yes, AI is not like AI helps do things. It helps speed things up, maybe help you like not have to hire like a real expensive data scientist or whatever. But it is not the solo solution. And if you don't have eyes on it and the right eyes,
yeah,
it could actually result in really bad things, It
absolutely can. So I will answer your question on the advertiser side. We have one of the things that other publishers I've talked to are doing this as well. And we're finally getting into it is experimenting with AI to create proposals. So not just a pretty proposal, but an actual, like, I've studied the advertiser. I've studied, here are the notes from what they're trying to do and accomplish in their goals. And here are the categories they're in. And you match that up with here's our products and here are their goals and here or here's when you would use them. And then here are the product categories and marrying all that up and make a recommendation for a good, better, best media plan. And this has been a pet peeve of mine for like, oh my gosh, ever since I got into digital, which is a long time, is you have 8 different sales reps, and they listen to a customer, or they sit down with a customer and they collect the information, and then you ask them to produce a proposal. You get 8 completely different proposals ranging from $10,000 to $100,000. And it's like, wait a minute, guys, it's the same company, in this hypothetical. Like, how is that even possible? And I see it in the data. This salesperson sells a ton of this, but hardly any of that, and vice versa. And it's like, and I know you sell what you're comfortable with, and some salespeople are really, really good at understanding certain of our products, and they just sell the hell out of it. Yeah. And I say, let's keep going. Let's do that. That's good. But everybody's not selling something, and it's like, oh, well, I don't really understand that, and I didn't. Oh, or worse, we have so many products, and this is a problem with publishers. We have so many products. Oh, I forgot about that one. Jeepers, yeah. Like I'll say, well, hey, why don't you sell them this product? It's perfect for them. Oh yeah. It's too late. I already pitched the thing, but you're right. I totally should have. I didn't. I just forgot that we had that, and it's like it's super frustrating. And like, what if? Here's a novel idea. What if we actually recommended the same thing to customers, so it's consistent and uniform, and now we're not having this variability where sales rep A sold something for $10,000 that sales rep B would have gotten $50,000.
Yeah. So you should think about building an agent, a proposal agent, that they input their transcript and recording from their calls, which is recorded on Gong or Zoom or Fireflies, and the agent is trained to say, okay, based on this discussion, we are going to propose this event, this lead gen, this and then all of a sudden you're because I talk about this all the time, we so overcomplicate the media kit and the offers that we have.
Totally.
And we make selling and delivering, more importantly, so unprofitable because we keep just like, well, let's do so the agent not only is going to give the proposals based on what you train it, but it actually is going to spit out every 3 months. David, here's what we are going to be selling. This is the new media offer because these are the 5 things people are buying the most because that's the need.
Yeah. I totally agree. It's I mean, this starts to get outside of data, but it ties to the theme of your conference, which is the revenue. And with we have a new VP of sales, and when he goes on calls, sometimes he finds, we have this problem, and I'm the worst offender, show up and throw up. It's like, let me tell you about, before you talk about yourself, let me tell you about all the 97 new products that we have.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know what? So he's actually saying, you know what? The menu is big and we don't have enough time to go through it. Let's talk about you, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, what's going on here. And then we can come back and make some recommendations. So I think that's a smarter way to go.
Well, listen, we are out of time. We could probably have a whole other conversation about this. This has been fascinating. I didn't even get through half our questions, but I do have to do rapid fire. We can never close without it. So first one is, what is the little known fact about your career?
Yes. So little known fact about my career is when, let's see here, pull it up. My first job was in publishing, was as a paste-up artist at a community newspaper in the late 1980s. And then, although I was the editor of my high school paper, I deliberately didn't try to get in the editorial side of this community newspaper because I did not have the self-confidence to even think I could there's no way I could be a reporter. I mean, this is like a little town,
Well, you could be a cub. Where did they call them, cubs?
Right. And it shows you the power, again, of self-limiting beliefs. Mm-hmm. And now, to be fair, the guy who was the editor the year before me is now a reporter for the New York Times. So it's kind of, the bar was pretty freaking high. So that's the little known fact.
And if you were on a deserted island and could only bring 3 things, what would you bring?
Stack of books, or if I have a really long extension cord, maybe my Kindle with a plastic sleeve to protect it from the sand. Really comfortable chair, satellite phone to stay in touch with friends and family.
Oh wow, you're electrifying it. You're digitizing the experience. And the best business book you've read this year?
Best business book I've read is this in the past year is Switch by Dan and Chip Heath, and I don't know if you know it, but it's really interesting because it lays out a path for how to go about introducing change in behaviors in teams and entire organizations. And it could be a company, it could be a classroom, it could be a not-for-profit, it could be the military, whatever. So anywhere that people congregate into organizations. And it was, for me, a completely new way of thinking about how change happens, because we tend to approach it from a logic standpoint, like, here's the reason why we must change, and therefore please change. And this book was really like a user's manual for how to really tap into the emotional side of what motivates us to change. And it does lay out a really nice roadmap that ladders from that big idea down to like, what are the actual changed behaviors on the ground? Not saying I'm successfully implementing it, but it was a really good book.
Awesome. And that'll go in our Revenue Room CXO member book club. And David, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Heather.
It was a great conversation. So before we close, a reminder that the conversation doesn't end here. It continues inside Revenue Room CXO, the only network where CEOs and their revenue critical teams turn AI disruption into growth strategy. And if you want to experience that thinking live and meet Dave in person, join us at Revved Up 2026, March 23rd through the 24th at the Vinoy in St. Pete, where the future of data, AI, and revenue leadership takes the main stage. We'll share links to David's LinkedIn as well as the event and Revenue Room CXO in the show notes. And with that, thank you, and we'll see you next time.